One of the worst things that can happen to us is to be disappointed time after time. We look forward to something or see somebody coming and it doesn't happen, and we are disappointed. I think one of the hardest things to look at is the face of a child when he's disappointed. It really breaks my heart. This story is about a man who was disappointed every day for 38 years. That was a long time. And we would think that he would have given up by now, but he didn't. When Jesus sees him, he asks him a question. Do you want to get well? It's a strange question, but it's a very important one. The man did not ask to be made better, but he was offered. Maybe after all these years of disappointment, he had lost the hope that he would be healed, and was used to lying on his mat, watching other people getting healed, when he couldn't reach the water. The story is only in the Gospel of John. Maybe because the other three Gospels concentrated on Jesus' ministry in Galilee. The pool of Bethesda was in Jerusalem, in Judea. Jesus and his disciples had gone to Jerusalem to one of the different religious festivals that were celebrated there. We don't know which one. And they went in near the sheep gate, where there was a pool called Bethesda. The porches had roofs over them, where a large crowd of sick people were lying. Some were blind, some were lame, some were paralysed. Some had come there by themselves, and others had been carried there. The reason they were there was because they were all hoping to be healed in the water in the pool. When the water in the pool was stirred, the belief was that it was an angel who stirred the water. And the first one to get into the water was healed from the illness, but only one every time. There was no hope for the others. Till next time is stirred, especially those who would have been carried to the water. There are some wells in this country and other countries too that people believe there is something in the water that heal people. People go to Lourdes in France in the hope that the water there will heal them, because it is known that there is something in the water that does heal. Many years ago, people used to go to Funangapi in Llangapi to be healed by the water in the well. If you've been there, you will know that the well is inside 4 walls with steps going down to the water. Next door, there's a ruin of a house that was used to give pilgrims rest before they went into the well, or after they had been to have a rest. That is why people went to the pool of Bethesda in this story. Every one of the sick people were hoping to be healed, but most of them were disappointed. Jesus knew that this man had been going there for 38 years because somebody carried him every day and left him there. He had no hope of reaching the water by himself. And other people always reached before him. Jesus sees him. There are lots of miracles that Jesus did after he had stopped and seen sick people. Even though Jesus was so busy, he always had time for the individual. He saw the need of one amongst the crowd. Today, when Jesus sees and stops, people's lives change. It does still happen. He can see our situation, our feelings, our fears, and he can make a difference to us. He understands us. As he asked the sick man if he wanted to be healed, he asks us today, do you want to be healed? What does this story say to us? The condition and despair of the sick, the compassion and the mercy of Christ, and the love that conquered the law. Condition and despair of the sick. As we think of this man who was disabled, had to be carried every day to the same place for 38 years, without any hope of someone being there to put him in the water, we cannot help but feel for him. How would we feel the same situation, I wonder? Would we be fed up, depressed, and have given up long before this? Why did Jesus go to him and no one else, I wonder? In verse 6 it says that Jesus knew he'd been ill for such a long time. After going to him, Jesus did not touch him, like he did when he healed people. But he asked him a question. Do you want to get well? Maybe Jesus wanted to know what was on his mind. Did he want to get better? Walking again would make such a difference to him and to the ones who were bringing him there. But he would miss sympathy and the kindness of people who saw him like this. I can't help but think that Jesus' eyes were full of love when he looked at him. I can imagine Jesus kneeling in front of him, looking straight into his eyes, that you could really see his soul and knew how he felt. It's easy to know how people feel if we look in their eyes, isn't it? No one can hide their feelings when their eyes show pain and suffering. When Jesus asks a question, do you want to get well? He doesn't answer yes or no, but he opens his heart. Sir, I have no one here to put me in the pool. When the water is stirred, while I'm trying to get in, somebody else gets there first. That's really sad. It shows he had been trying to get in the water. He wanted to get well. It was good that whoever brought him there every day, but why did they not stay to help him? He couldn't do it by himself, they knew that. Why didn't they not care? But Jesus cared. He cares for us today, and he always will. There are lots of people today looking for healing spiritually and bodily, and feeling they are in a hopeless situation and do not know how to get better. But Jesus is the same always, and he will be there for any one of us. I cannot understand, how do people who do not believe in God and his Son, Jesus Christ, face the storms of life without putting everything in his hands? No one can face these things without strength. And Jesus said, come to me, all who are heavy laden, and I shall give you rest. He is the only one who can save us. There was a story about a man who went into some caves on his own. He was looking for fossils. They were beautiful inside, and he was so pleased he went. And he loved it so much, he walked a long way into the caves and forgot the time. After a while, he thought, maybe it's time to turn and go back now. But even though he went along the road and all the places he saw, he was lost. Suddenly he heard a voice calling, hello. A man came towards him with all the gear for inspecting caves. It was clear that this man was used to being in the caves. If you are lost, he said, follow me out, because I am used to this place, and I can save you. But the man who was lost did not want to seem silly for getting lost, and pretended he was fine, as he was used to the caves. He said, no, thank you, I am fine. I will find my own way out. The other man shook his head in disbelief and went out without him. That man refused to help from someone who was offering him a helping hand and safety. There are people today that prefer to refuse the way Jesus offers and go their own way, even though they know they are lost. Jesus knows when we are troubled. Jesus knows our every prayer. Jesus has our trials and sorrow always in his care. The compassion and mercy of Christ. Through the Gospels we read about Jesus. We see people who needed help. He felt pity for them. He had compassion. I love that word. It's lovely and warm, isn't it? Jesus touched the ones who had leprosy, dried the eyes of those who were crying, smiled at those who were ignored, and even loved his enemies. When the widow Nain lost her only son, Jesus took pity on her and gave him life. When the crowd followed him and they were hungry, he took pity on them and fed 5,000. That is what happened in this story. He heard that this man had been lying on his mat in the pool for such a long time, and he had compassion. He wanted to heal him. People were so cruel, letting him, wishing to be healed for 38 years. No one offered to put him in the pool. Disabled man who couldn't do anything for himself, depending on other people, and was ignored. After so many years of the situation, without hope and seeing others being healed. Jerusalem was a very busy city, especially during the feast like this one. Many people passing the pool on their way. What they did was walk on. On the other side, many were there, but no compassion. Jesus comes to him. He doesn't touch him. Like too many others he healed. He didn't offer to take him to the pool either. No. He said, do you want to get well? The man does not answer yes or no. It tells him about his problem. He couldn't reach the pool. Get up, pick your mat and walk, Jesus said. Immediately the man got well, picked up his mat and walked. Complete healing. A man who had been lying for so many years was given enough strength to get up and walk. You'd think that he would have found it difficult to stand up and walk briskly. But it's not the case. He got up, picked up his mats and started walking. Of course, the story doesn't end there. When the Jewish authorities saw him walking and carrying his mats, they said to him that he was breaking the law. It was Sabbath. He was not allowed to carry a mat. The man who was healed did not know who Jesus was, but he told those people, the man who healed me told me to do it. This shows that Jesus' compassion towards people who do not know him. No one is left out of God's plans because God touches the lives of people we never think he would. He has compassion towards people who know nothing about him till they feel his strength and his love, and is always near to us in sad situations, whoever we are, wherever we are. It's very important that we tell people about this. People who feel lonely, people who don't know where to turn. Somebody said to me the other day, I'm not coming to church because I'm a sinner. And I said, well, we go to the church because we are sinners. On his way to heal the daughter of Jairus, Jesus healed a woman who touched his garment because her faith healed her. Maybe she felt she was too much of a sinner and she couldn't ask Jesus to heal her. Christ, who has compassion, is our Christ. Love which will never deceive me. Love which will never let me go. Who can measure half the treasure of his love, who loves me so. And then the love that conquered the law. Jewish authorities were ready to point a finger toward Jesus. They knew he had broken the law when he had healed the man on the Sabbath, but Jesus was always challenging them. He healed people on the Sabbath. He had corn in the field on the Sabbath. And he said to this man, carry your mat. That was against the law. Jewish authorities condemned the man who was healed carrying the mat. He said, why are you carrying this mat? It's a Sabbath day. And the man puts blame on someone else. It was the man who healed me, he said. He told me to carry it. Who was he, they asked. He didn't know. Later, Jesus sees him at the temple, and he tells him not to sin again, in case something worse happened to him. And the man went straight to the authorities and told them who healed him. Why did he not do this, I wonder? Was it because he was so glad to be healed, wanted to give Jesus praise, or because he was afraid to be punished for carrying a mat? This was another excuse for condemning him. Hearing this, Jesus said, my Father's always working, and I must work too. Making a difference in the life of a sick man was much more important to Jesus than the law. The gospel of Christ is above the law. Because he defied the law, he was caught and put on the cross, and he died for us, not because he did not listen to the authorities. This man wanted to be healed in the water, but he was healed by Jesus. We will be healed because Jesus died on the cross and because of the grace of God. All of us know the hymn, Amazing Grace. It's a story about D.L. Moody, who went out in the street one day and asked people, "Do you know what grace means?" Very few people knew what the word meant, like today, of course. It's a word we do not use. Moody told everyone that grace is God's love for us in our sin, giving us forgiveness even though we do not deserve it. It is not perfect, if anyone is perfect, that receives God's grace. God deals with people that are not good enough like us. Billy Graham had a son called Franklin. He'd gone off the rails, lived a wild life, always in trouble. He drove a motorcycle. One day he went to see his dad to ask for money. His hair was long, his beard was long, and he had a scruffy beard, and he wore leathers. He burst into the father's living room, not realizing he had an important meeting and the room was full. His father did not shout at him, nor did he send him out, or apologize for his behavior either. He didn't make him feel bad in front of people. No, he held him and introduced him as his son. Franklin wrote in a book he published years later, the love and respect his father gave him that day shook him and made him a different person. He said he did not deserve it because of his behavior and lifestyle. Our children do not have to deserve our love, do they? By loving them and forgiving them, we're doing something that God would like us to do. We have never deserved his love, but he loves us even though we are all still sinners, because he sent his only son to die on the cross for us. So if he can love us, so should we love others, especially our children. Jesus Christ will never disappoint us. The world does that. When I think that God, his son, not sparing, sent him to die, I scarce can take it in. As on the cross, my burden gladly bearing, he bled and died to take away my sin. In Jesus' name, amen.